All right, let's dive into something really fascinating today, the science of the introverted brain. We're going to explore why, for so many of us, quiet isn't just something we like, it's something our brains actually need. We're going to look at introversion not as some kind of flaw that needs to be fixed, but as a completely different and frankly powerful way of seeing the world. And it's all rooted in the unique way our brains are wired. So let me just start by asking you a question. Have you ever left a party or a big work event or even just a long day of meetings, and instead of feeling hyped up, you just feel completely wiped out? You know that feeling, right? Like your internal battery is just flashing on empty, and all you can think about is finding a quiet, maybe even dark room to just be. If that sounds at all familiar, then you're definitely in the right place. Okay, let's really get into this with a great analogy, the social battery. So picture two people at the exact same party. Over on the left, we've got person A, our extrovert. They're just on fire. They're bouncing from group to group, meeting tons of new people. They're the life of the party. And when they finally walk out the door at 3 in the morning, somehow their battery's at 100%. They're buzzing. Now look at person B on the right, our introvert. They're at the same event. Maybe they find a quiet spot, have one or two really great, deep conversations, but by 10 p.m., they could feel that battery level just plummeting into the red. And it's not just I'm tired, it's a deep physical exhaustion. They have to leave, like right now. For a long, long time, society has tended to look at person A and say, that's normal, and look at person B and label them shy or antisocial. But what we're about to see is that this has nothing to do with character and absolutely everything to do with brain chemistry. And that very misunderstanding leads us right to the heart of the problem. It's this huge societal pressure that comes from something psychologists have called the extrovert ideal. It's this quiet, unspoken idea that one way of being is just better. So what is this extrovert ideal? Well, it's this deep-seated cultural bias that says the ideal person is outgoing, assertive, and totally comfortable being the center of attention. And once you see it, you start to notice it literally everywhere. Think about our schools, where class participation grades often go to the students who are the fastest to raise their hand, not always the ones with the most thoughtful answer. Or think about our workplaces, all the open plan offices and endless group brainstorming sessions. They are tailor-made for constant interaction. We're told from day one to network, to speak up, to sell yourself. And the problem is, this whole ideal sets a standard that just doesn't work for the natural wiring of, about a third to a half of the population. So what happens when you're constantly pushed to be someone you're not? Well, it often leads to what's known as the shame spiral. It starts when the world keeps telling you that your natural way of being is wrong, and you start to believe it. This can lead to chronic burnout. You might have heard of the introvert hangover, which is just that feeling of total exhaustion from having to perform all day, every day. It can also create this deep social anxiety, not because you're afraid of people, but because you're afraid of that overwhelming, almost physically painful feeling of overstimulation. And maybe the worst part is it can make you feel completely undervalued, like your quiet, thoughtful contributions just don't count, in a world that seems to only listen to the loudest person in the room. But this is where the entire story flips on its head, because here is the most important thing to get. Being an introvert isn't a preference. It's not a personality choice. It's biology. So for this next part, we're going to put on our metaphorical lab coats and take a look under the hood at the actual hardware, the neurology and chemistry that make the introverted brain so unique. So let's start with this tiny but super powerful part of your brainstem called the reticular activating system, or just RAS for short. Honestly, the best way to think about the RAS is as your brain's master volume knob. Seriously, it's the gatekeeper that decides how much information from the outside world, every sight, every sound, every little social cue, gets through to your conscious mind. It's basically the bouncer at the nightclub of your brain, deciding who gets in. And right here is the absolute game changer. The theory goes that introverts, like you see on the left, are born with a naturally high-set RAS. Their volume knob is already cranked up to like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Their brains are just naturally taking in a ton of information, so their baseline level of mental arousal is already really high. So when you add a loud party or a crazy busy office on top of that, the whole system just gets flooded. It's instant overload. They feel this biological need to get away just to turn that volume down. Extroverts, on the other hand, have a low-set RAS. Their volume knob is naturally chilling at a 2 or a 3. So they're actually walking around feeling a little understimulated. They crave that external noise and energy just to get their brains up to a level that feels good and alert. This one single difference explains so much about why one person's thrilling party is another person's living night. Okay, let's go one layer deeper, to brain chemistry. Now, we all have the same chemicals in our brains, but we're rewarded by different things. Extroverts, on the left, get a huge reward from the dopamine pathway. Dopamine is all about seeking, risk, and novelty. So when they meet a new person or get a lot of attention, their brain gets this big, exciting hit of dopamine. It's a rush. But for introverts, on the right, the relationship with dopamine is kind of complicated. They're actually really sensitive to it. Too much of that buzz doesn't feel exciting, it feels kind of jittery and overwhelming. The introvert brain prefers a different reward system, the acetylcholine pathway. And this is a totally different vibe. Acetylcholine gives you this gentle, pleasant feeling of reward when you turn your focus inward, when you're lost in a great book, solving a tough problem, or just thinking. It's not a buzz, it's a feeling of calm, focused contentment. It's the feeling of flow. And finally, let's look at the body's master control panel, the nervous system. The easiest way to think about this is like a car. You've got a gas pedal and you've got a brake. The gas pedal is your sympathetic nervous system, the SNS. This is your go, go, go system. It floods your body with adrenaline and gets you ready for action. And guess what? High-energy social situations slam that gas pedal to the floor. Extroverts seem to have a high tolerance for this. They love running on that high-octane fuel. The brake pedal, on the other hand, is the parasympathetic nervous system, or PNS. It's the rest and digest system. It does the exact opposite. It saves energy, slows things down, and brings on a sense of calm. For introverts, that SNS gas pedal gets exhausting really, really fast. They have a critical biological need to hit the PNS brake pedal by finding a quiet space so they can rest, process everything, and recharge their batteries. So let's just pull this all together for a second. This table sums it up perfectly. On the first line, you have RAS sensitivity. For introverts, it's high, they're easily overstimulated. For extroverts, it's low, they need the stimulation. Second line, primary neurotransmitter. Introverts are rewarded by the calm feeling from acetylcholine, while extroverts are chasing that excitement reward from dopamine. And third, the dominant nervous system. Introverts rely on that parasympathetic rest and digest system, while extroverts thrive in the sympathetic go, go, go mode. When you see it all laid out like this, it becomes so clear. These aren't just personality quirks. This is deep, hardwired biology.
Okay, so that's a lot of science, I know. But what does it actually look like out there in the real world? Let's connect these big ideas to some everyday situations that you've probably found yourself in.
Let's kick things off with a classic work scenario, something so many of us have felt, the meeting freeze. You know this one. You're in a big brainstorming meeting and ideas are just flying everywhere. People are talking over each other and you've got this brilliant, really well thought out idea forming in your head. You're connecting all the dots, you can see the solution, but you just can't find that split-second opening to jump in. And by the time you've gotten the thought just right and a pause finally comes, the conversation has already moved on. And you just leave the meeting feeling so frustrated because you never said a thing. So what's really going on in your brain there? The most important thing to realize is this. That is not slow thinking, that is deep thinking. Your highly active brain is trying to process everything at once. It's analyzing what everyone else is saying, it's reading the room, it's filtering out the noise, all while trying to carefully build your own idea. Your brain's default mode is to process information thoroughly before you speak. That typical brainstorming style, which is all about speed, just doesn't mesh with your brain's natural, powerful way of working. Okay, here's another one you might recognize, the Irish goodbye. You're at a party or maybe a big family get-together, and for the first hour, you're actually having a pretty good time. But then it's like a switch just flips, and you are just done, like completely and totally done. The thought of making small talk for one more minute feels almost physically painful. So you spot a moment when no one's really paying attention, and you just quietly slip out the door, avoiding that whole long, drawn-out goodbye process. Now, a lot of people might think that's rude, but what you're seeing is pure neurology at work. Remember that RAS and dopamine sensitivity we talked about? This is it, in real time. That switch flip feeling, that was your brain hitting its absolute stimulation limit. Your RAS went into overload and your dopamine threshold was officially crossed. At that point, staying any longer feels like a genuine threat to your system. So that quick exit, it's not rudeness. It's an act of neurological self-preservation. It's a biological need to lower your sensory input right now. And our last one, which might be the most relatable of all, the weekend hermit. You've had a crazy long week, maybe in a loud, open-plan office. You've had to be on for 5 straight days, in meetings, on calls, making small talk. And when Friday night finally hits, the idea of going out with friends sounds like the worst thing in the entire world. Instead, you spend the whole weekend blissfully, gloriously alone, reading, watching movies, just recharging. And you barely speak to another soul until Monday morning. This is the biological recharge process in its purest form. You are not being antisocial, you are not being a loner, you are doing something biologically essential. By choosing to be alone, you are intentionally hitting that brake pedal and firing up your parasympathetic nervous system. You're letting your overstimulated brain just soak in its favorite calming chemical, acetylcholine. You are literally replenishing the massive amount of energy you burned all week just trying to exist in a world that wasn't built for you. You're not hiding. You're just plugging yourself back into the charger. Okay, so knowing all this science, the big question is, what do we do about it? How do we not just get by, but actually thrive in a world that so often feels like it's on a different wavelength? Well, the answer is not to try to become an extrovert. It's to understand your own operating system and learn how to use it to your absolute advantage. So, here's a really simple 4-step framework based on all this science we've been talking about. First up is radical acceptance. Just fully and finally stop apologizing for the way you're wired. Step 2, manage your energy. Learn to treat it like the precious, limited resource that it is. Step 3, play to your strengths. Lean into the things your brain is naturally amazing at. And finally, step 4, master the introvert hacks so you can navigate social stuff on your own terms. Let's break that down. Let's make this super practical. For radical acceptance, start by reframing how you talk about it. No more saying, sorry, I'm so antisocial for leaving. Try saying, I've hit my stimulation limit for the night, or I just need some quiet time to recharge. For energy management, I want you to start making what I call solitude sandwiches. If you have a big party on Saturday night, you have to intentionally schedule quiet time before and after. Protect that Saturday afternoon and all of Sunday. It's non-negotiable recovery time. Third, to play to your strengths, you have to embrace deep work. Your brain is built for focus, so block out long, uninterrupted periods of time for that deep creative work where you really shine. And finally, for socializing, use the quality over quantity hack. Instead of trying to have 10 shallow conversations, just aim to have one really good, meaningful one. It's a way more rewarding and less draining way to connect.
I really want to leave you with this one final thought, because it's so important. Your sensitivity, that tendency you have to think things through before you speak, your deep need for time alone, these are not weaknesses. They are not things you need to fix. They are the very source of your greatest gifts, your empathy, your creativity, your ability to focus, and your amazing ability to notice the details and see the quiet truths that so many other people just rush right past. The goal isn't to change who you are, it's to build a life that truly honors it.
So the next time you feel that pull to just be quiet, don't fight it. Listen to it. You are simply taking care of the incredible, complex, and powerful machine that is your introverted brain. And that leads me to one last question for you to think about. In a world that just seems to get louder and louder, what is the true untapped power of quiet? Thank you so much for joining me.